Hey, good afternoon. This is Liam Bowler. Welcome back to my office, Dynamic Alignment Bodywork. Today, I want to do a short video about walking. Not only because it's summertime, I've been walking a lot. I was just joking with some clients that, you're half joking that I like to train stuff in the winter, but in the summertime, it's nice to be out and walk and swim, so I know I'm out a lot more. And two, because I think how to walk and sit and maybe stand posture is a really, really common question that I think not only I get, but it's just sort of out in the field of like, how do I do that? And probably, of course, as you might guess my answer as you watch some of these videos, that the answers can be so like enormously uncognitively nuanced. I guess I say uncognitively because it can't just be a list of bullet points. And that said, we can for sure have pointers to move in the right direction. So generally speaking, a good way to sit, stand, and walk. This video isn't about that, but instead, maybe a way to like mix up your own routine, to like kind of throw a wrench in your own gears of like ways of always doing things. And I find that a really, really helpful practice. To kind of, I think of it as like a loving wrench in your gears, with the intent not just to like mess you up, but the intent to kind of disrupt your normal circuitry, like way of doing it. So like, you know, if I always stand with all my weight on the right foot, right? An example of that could be just stand with your weight on the left foot. But the point not being to end up with more weight on your left foot in the end, but just to give your body some new information. And that's a lot of what's going on in this body work. You know, in movement training in general, no matter what we call it. So here are a few thoughts in no particular order that you can sort of take with you when you're walking down the street, and especially if you have that question. A lot of times people don't have necessarily pain walking. They might just feel a little wonky, or it can be just straight up fun to play with, or like a way to dance through the world. So one of those, and I've sort of been playing with all these in no particular order, but it can be really interesting to notice when you're walking that you can sort of have a lead side in this cadence. Like you can start counting to yourself and see which one naturally comes in as the one. So if it's like, I'm not gonna walk while I make these videos, so I'll sort of walk in place on the treadmill, right? But for me, it might be like 1, 2, 1, 2. And it'll feel like one side is sort of carrying the conversation. One thing to play with is just switch those in your head and literally start counting 1 on the other side without even a big effort to make something different. But it's just like music. If the music is sort of going bum, 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 again, bum, bum, and it's crazy to me how different that feels. And I think a lot of us have a dominant side. So that's one way to again kind of scramble your circuitry a little bit. You could ask the question about the thing what's not grabbing your attention. I think this is another really helpful cue in general. So if you notice, man, my hips feel weird, or that one thing is always catching, practice bringing your attention somewhere else. And a question you might ask is, what do you feel least aware of as you're walking? So it can be kind of a funny, like, how do we know our own blind spots? But just knowing you have a body, right, and everywhere in it, like, what's least aware of right now, and bring your attention there and see what that thing is doing. And if you're always playing with your feet, like maybe it's your upper back or something, and like, oh, what's it like to kind of bring some attention and like not necessarily do anything crazy with it, though you might, but do a little change up there. I have these written down. Another like image that I think is helpful is to consider that walking is largely an elastic recoil. That's largely the mechanism for it, instead of muscular contraction. Walking slow motion and walking at cadence are two different anatomical happenings. And the second one, walking with actual cadence, gives us a lot of spring through the system. So one is just to literally envision yourself. It's like springs within springs within springs. So you maybe as one giant spring, and not like you're necessarily boinging down the street, but that kind of ground force reaction, it's called. That would be like the joint mechanics terms for it. But that proprioceptive information springing up. and then there's a spring of your legs, and in each joint, and in your feet, and in the little like sub joints in your feet, and all those have, and this is actually happening is the crazy part. It's not just like, oh, envision yourself light. It's like that springiness is happening. So bringing your attention there can be an interesting way to help your body reorganize around walking. A couple others. One is to, actually a couple quickly having to do with your cranium and sort of how you perceive. One, don't change anything in your body or bring your attention there, but instead just soften your gaze. You can think back to our, more primitive days when we probably spent a lot more of our time with a relatively soft gaze, sort of, and peripheral vision that is a lot better at picking up movement. And today we spend a lot of time focused, and a lot of times that focus carries over with us. I mean, as we probably all know all too well, that kind of intensity of eye gaze. So this is probably a good practice anyway. And affecting this sort of hub can do kind of, well, you'll see, but can have a pretty profound effect on the like dense physical body, the rest of you. So again, that cue is just as you're walking, like let your eyes just go soft, like if you're taking in more of the periphery. Not enough where you're going to run into a light pole, but enough where you can tell more what's going on than like the thing I'm going towards. Likewise, you can practice like, you can close your eyes if you want, if you have a safe space to do that, but even without closing your eyes, you can navigate more by hearing, like really tuning into the sort of rich tapestry of sounds. And again, not only is this sort of like a neat exercise that might seem sort of meditative and nice, which it is, but it also induces a physiological change and therefore an anatomical change in you, like just how we're wired up here. And again, try it, don't take my word for it, but like tune into more of your hearing and soft eye gaze and see if, without changing anything else, you start walking differently. Last one that I had made a note on was a lot of times we tend to think of left and right, or like, oh, I'm too much to the left, I need to get over to the right, or I'm too forward, I need to come back. And we could think of those as sort of like helpful cardinal directions, and the nuances of the way we compress and decompress with every step, over a lifetime, over a month, over a stressful event, is much more, tends to happen in like a sort of a spiral and even like non-linear. It doesn't mean it just gets shorter. So if, this is the joint space, or if this is, I could fit between my two hands, we might like squiggle down a little bit and then kind of squiggle back up. So one can be, the last thing would be to bring your attention to the kind of spiral mechanics of the body, and not necessarily always spiraling in or out, but you can envision cylinders, like if your legs are cylinders, if your two halves are cylinders. And even then within each joint, if it's like, man, my weight's always more on my right foot, see if you can get a little bit more nuanced and fill out that somatic map of what's actually going on in your legs. And you might find, oh, it's actually a more sort of complex and interesting story than just too much right, therefore we need more left. And like, okay, too much right, but in this certain sort of like sliding way. And what's it like to sort of like play with that like slide that might have this sort of twisting element to it? And you can twist back, or you can go even further into it. I'm obviously making these big motions about what might be a subtle thing. And it might be a really big thing, who knows? So anyway, all those, which I don't even need to recap, but watch this video again if you want to recap, can be helpful ways to throw a wrench in your own gears. I just thought of this, probably made this video actually. It's sort of like a koan. I don't know if other traditions have this, but in Zen meditation, a koan is a question that's asked, but the point isn't to answer it. The point is to let the question kind of burn through our normal ways of seeing, kind of the fog of day-to-day living, and get to some greater truth. And I think in some ways we could look at these as like a movement koan, which you can apply to walking or a lot of different places. But this koan where the point isn't to, in that first case, like all of a sudden have a different side leading, like who cares, right? But the point is to let that kind of reset things, and then your innate intelligence, as it tends to, finds its way out and into better movement patterns, and it's more fun. So, till next